He broke her heart with one lie, but what she discovered after he vanished will leave you breathless and in tears. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more heart-stopping love stories that keep you on the edge until the very end. There was something different about that morning. The air felt softer, the world quieter, like Boston itself had paused to listen when Tony Hayes first smiled at me across the cafe counter. It wasn't love at first sight, not the way movies tell it. It was quieter than that. A warmth that began somewhere deep inside my chest, something that made me glance back even after I'd turned away. He was sitting by the window, sketchbook open, a pencil tucked behind his ear, coffee going cold beside him. I was on my lunch break from the hospital, messy bun, scrubs wrinkled, exhaustion hanging on me like perfume. Still, when our eyes met, he smiled as if I'd just stepped out of a dream. "Rough day?" he'd asked, voice gentle, deep like velvet. "Rough week," I said, slipping into the chair opposite him before I could second-guess myself. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe the way he looked at me, maybe the way I needed someone to. That was 2 years ago. Now, every corner of my apartment carried his echo. His coffee mug still sitting in the sink, his cologne still woven into the sheets. Back then, love was enough. Tony Hayes was unlike anyone I had ever met. He didn't chase me the way most men did. He listened. When I talked about patients who broke my heart, or the nights I cried after losing one, he didn't try to fix me. He simply sat beside me in silence, holding my hand until the ache dulled. He had the kind of steadiness you could build a life around. And for a while I did. We spent our weekends exploring antique stores, arguing over which record had better lyrics, slow dancing in the kitchen long after the music stopped. Tony always said love lived in the quiet moments, not the grand ones. I believed him. But even in those quiet moments, something about him remained hidden. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and find him on the balcony, staring into nothing. Other times I'd ask about his family and he'd change the subject, always with a soft smile that said, "Don't push." And I didn't. Because when you love someone, you tell yourself not to ruin the good thing you have by asking for too much truth. Until the truth finds you on its own. It was late, almost midnight, when I went looking for the tape measure. I was redecorating our bedroom, trying to surprise him with new curtains. I checked the drawers, the toolbox, even under the bed. Finally, I pulled open the bottom drawer of his desk. Inside was a small stack of papers, receipts, invoices, an old photograph of a woman laughing by the sea. And then, beneath them, an envelope. Cream-colored, edges soft from being handled too many times. It was addressed to Claire. The handwriting was unmistakable, slanted, graceful, his. My breath hitched. I shouldn't have opened it. I told myself that even as I slid my thumb beneath the flap and unfolded the page inside. My dearest Claire. If I could rewrite the years, I'd still find you in every one of them. You are and always will be my forever. Tony. The room spun. Forever yours. Tony. My Tony. I stood there, shaking, the letter trembling in my hand. For a long time I couldn't move, couldn't think. My heart was thudding so loud it drowned out everything else. Claire. He had never mentioned a Claire. Not once. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the paper as if it could explain itself. But all it did was scream betrayal in perfect cursive. When I heard the door open, I froze. Tony walked in, jacket over his arm, face softened by that tired evening smile I used to love so much. "Hey Jen," he said. "You're still up?" I didn't answer. I just held up the letter. His steps faltered. His face went pale. "Where did you find that?" His voice was low, almost a whisper. "In your drawer." My own voice trembled. "Who's Claire?" He didn't speak right away. He just looked at me, really looked, like he'd been waiting for this moment and dreading it all at once. "You weren't supposed to find that," he finally said. The air between us thickened, heavy with everything he wasn't saying. "She was your wife, wasn't she?" I asked. "The one you said died years ago?" He closed his eyes. For a moment I thought he might lie again. But when he opened them, they were filled with something raw, guilt, sorrow, love. "She's not dead," he said quietly. The words hit me like ice water. "What?" "She's alive. But sick. Very sick." He ran a hand through his hair. "Stage 4. She's in a hospice center outside the city. I visit her sometimes. I didn't want you to find out like this." I couldn't breathe. Every heartbeat felt like glass breaking inside my chest. "So all this time," I said, my voice cracking, "you were living 2 lives? Loving her and me?" "It's not like that," he said quickly. "Claire and we were over long before she got sick. But when I found out, I couldn't just abandon her. She has no one else." Stop." Tears burned my eyes. Do you have any idea what that makes me, Tony? What that makes us? He took a step closer. I stepped back. I love you, Jennifer, he said, voice breaking. You have to believe that. Love. I whispered. You call this love? I didn't wait for his answer. I couldn't. I walked past him, the letter still clutched in my shaking hand. He tried to stop me, his fingers brushing my arm. Please, Jen, listen. I turned, my voice sharp with pain. You should have let me love you honestly, Tony. I would have stayed through anything. Except lies. And then I left. The rain had just started, soft at first, then heavier, like the sky itself couldn't hold it in anymore. I walked without direction, without umbrella, letting it soak through my clothes until my tears disappeared into it. Behind me, I could hear his voice calling my name, breaking apart in the storm. But I didn't look back. Because that night, love stopped being enough. The rain didn't stop that night. It followed me home like a curse. Every drop sounded like his name against the pavement. Soft, relentless, impossible to forget. By the time I reached my apartment, my hands were trembling so badly I couldn't fit the key into the lock. The letter was still in my fist, the paper soaked and curling at the edges. It felt like proof that the life I'd built, the love I'd believed in, was dissolving right there with the ink. When I finally stepped inside, the silence greeted me like a stranger. The clock ticked too loudly. My phone buzzed again and again, Tony flashing across the screen, until I turned it off and threw it on the couch. I slid down against the wall, knees to my chest, and for the first time in years I cried like a child. Ugly, shaking sobs that tore through my chest until I had no voice left to give them. I'd always thought heartbreak would feel like anger, like shouting and slamming doors. But it wasn't. It was quiet. It was standing in the ruins of a love that was still alive, and realizing it had already died. Days blurred together after that. I went to work. I smiled for patience. I pretended everything was fine. But every night I came home to the same haunting emptiness. His toothbrush still sat in my bathroom. His sweater hung on my chair. I told myself to throw them out, but I couldn't. It felt like erasing evidence that it had ever been real. My best friend, Maya, noticed before anyone else. She found me in the hospital cafeteria one afternoon, staring blankly at my untouched salad. You look like hell, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I tried to smile. I'm just tired. You're not just tired, Jen. You look gone. I stared down at my hands. The silver ring Tony had given me still glinted faintly on my finger. Not a proposal ring, just a promise. I tried to take it off. I couldn't. Maya sighed softly. It's him, isn't it? My throat tightened. He lied to me, Maya. Her eyes softened. All men lie in some way. What did he do? He told me his wife was dead. I swallowed hard. She's not. Maya froze. Wait, what? She's alive. Sick. And he's been taking care of her all this time. For a moment, Maya said nothing. Then quietly, oh, Jen? I expected judgment. Maybe even anger on my behalf. But what hurt most was her pity, that soft, understanding look people give you when they know your heart will never be the same. Do you still love him? She asked. I laughed bitterly, though it came out more like a sob. That's the worst part. I do. God help me, I still do. That night, I opened my phone again. 42 missed calls. 16 unread messages. Tony, please let me explain. Tony, I never meant to hurt you. Tony, you're the only thing keeping me sane right now. And then one that broke me completely. Tony, she asked about you. She said she's sorry. I didn't reply. I couldn't bear the thought of her, of Claire, being real. Being human. Being someone who wasn't the villain I wanted to hate. I threw the phone onto the couch again, turned off the lights, and sat there in the dark. That's where love leaves you, not in fire but in the slow burning of what's left. A week passed before I saw him again. I was walking out of the hospital when I noticed a familiar car parked by the curb. My heart stuttered before I could stop it. He stepped out, looking thinner, older somehow. His eyes found me instantly, full of that same aching softness that used to make me feel safe. Jennifer, he said, voice barely a whisper. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to walk away. But my feet wouldn't move. He took a hesitant step closer. Please. Just let me talk. I folded my arms tightly. There's nothing left to say. There's everything left to say. His voice cracked. You deserve to hear it from me, not from a letter, not from anyone else. I shook my head. No. What I deserved was honesty. And you didn't think I was worth that. His jaw clenched like he was swallowing back words too heavy to speak. She was my wife, Jen. I couldn't abandon her. Not when I promised her forever. Forever. My voice trembled. You promised me forever too. He flinched. For a moment, silence stretched between us, heavy, suffocating. I'm sorry, he said finally, voice breaking. You were the only thing that made me feel alive again. I never wanted to lose you. I could feel tears pressing at the back of my throat. You already did. And I walked away. This time he didn't follow. Grief is a strange thing. It doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slowly, in the morning coffee you can't finish because it tastes like the one he used to make. In the song that plays in the supermarket. In the empty side of the bed that still smells like him. I stopped sleeping. Stopped eating. Work became my distraction, my excuse to keep moving. But some nights, when the hospital hallways were quiet and the city lights bled into the windows, I found myself thinking of him. Wondering if he was still sitting beside Claire's bed, holding her hand the way he used to hold mine. And every time, that thought tore me in two, love and hate wrestling inside me until I didn't know which was which anymore. One Friday evening, just as I was locking up after a long shift, the receptionist called out, "Jennifer, someone left this for you." She handed me a small, neatly wrapped box. No name. No note. Just my name written in Tony's handwriting across the top. My hands shook as I unwrapped it. Inside was a single Polaroid photo, the one he took on our first trip to Cape Cod. I was sitting on the sand, wind in my hair, laughing at something he'd said. On the back, in his handwriting. For the days you forget how loved you were. Beneath it was a folded note. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I just needed you to remember the truth beneath the lies. I didn't expect to hear from him. Months had passed since that night in the rain, since the Polaroid and the note that left a faint trace of hope I wasn't sure I wanted to follow. Yet there it was, a message that changed everything. It wasn't a text or a call. It came in the quietest, most unassuming way, a letter at my door, typed neatly, folded in half like he had spent hours trying to make it look ordinary. Jennifer, I'm sorry. Please don't be angry with me. I just wanted you to know. Claire passed away last night. Peacefully. She asked for me to reach out to you before anyone else. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me or even want to see me, but if you do, I'll be at the old cafe tomorrow at 3. The words blurred before my eyes. My chest constricted so violently I thought I might collapse. I couldn't breathe. She was gone. And Tony, he was waiting. The next day, I arrived at the cafe half an hour early, my hands shaking as I pushed open the door. Everything smelled like coffee and old wood, ordinary, mundane, and yet, my entire body tightened at the thought of seeing him again. And there he was. Sitting at our usual table, head bowed, hands wrapped around a steaming cup, staring at the table as though the world had ended already. Tony, I whispered, my voice barely above the hum of the cafe. He looked up slowly, eyes meeting mine. For a split second, it was exactly as I remembered, that quiet intensity, that familiar warmth that had once made my chest ache in happiness. Then reality hit me like a fist. He looked fragile, thinner, older. Something about him was hollowed out, as if the weight of months, of loss, of guilt, had taken pieces of him I could never restore. I choked on the words. I'm so sorry about Claire. He shook his head, a faint, sad smile tugging at his lips. Don't apologize, Jennifer. She's at peace. And I needed you to know. We sat there, neither of us speaking, the past months stretching between us like an unbridgeable gap. I wanted to reach for his hand. I wanted to scream at him, cry, beg him to explain everything, to make it all right. But I couldn't. Not yet. Finally, I whispered, Why didn't you tell me? His shoulders slumped. I thought I could protect you from the pain. I thought if you knew, you'd hate me, leave me, and I couldn't bear to lose you before you had a chance to love me freely. Tears blurred my vision. Tony, I loved you. I still do. I can't believe you let me go like that. For her sickness. He flinched slightly at my words, and I hated myself for it immediately. I hated that my heart still ached with anger and love at the same time. I never wanted to lose you, he said quietly. Even for a second. And I didn't. Not inside my head. You were always there. I shook my head, trying to make sense of the tangle of emotions, trying to keep my heart from shattering all over again. How do you even exist like this? After everything? Tony's eyes glistened with a pain I could feel in my bones. I survived. I survived knowing you were happy. That you might forgive me one day. I wanted to reach across the table and grab him, to tell him it was all right, that nothing mattered except the love we had. But then I saw it, the slight tremor in his hands as he lifted the cup to his lips, the hollow ring around his eyes, the thinness of his frame. And the truth hit me like a hammer. He was failing. His body, worn down by months of grief, sleepless nights, and a heart that refused to stay steady, had been quietly betraying him all along. My throat tightened. "Tony, you look—" "I'm fine," he interrupted softly, almost too softly to hear. "I'll be fine. Please, Jennifer, just sit with me. For a while. Let me have this." So I did. I sat. And we drank coffee in silence, two hearts tethered by memory, regret, and a love that refused to die. Hours passed. And in that silence, I understood the truth I had been too afraid to face. Some things cannot be fixed. Some love cannot survive timing. Some endings cannot be rewritten. Finally, I whispered, "I don't know what to say, Tony." "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "I just wanted you to know that I never stopped loving you. Even when I should have. Even when it would have been easier to hate me." The words were a knife and a bomb at the same time. I wanted to cry, to scream, to throw myself into his arms and never let go. But I knew it was too late. And then, almost as if my body knew what my heart could not yet accept, he leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. The world didn't shatter all at once. There was no dramatic collapse, no sobbing that left me gasping. Instead, it was quiet. The subtle, unbearable quiet of someone who has given all the love they can and is finally ready to let go. I watched him for what felt like hours, memorizing the lines of his face, the curve of his jaw, the way his shoulders slumped as if the weight of life itself had finally pressed down too hard. And then it happened. He leaned forward slightly, reaching for the cup again, and his hand trembled. The tremor was so small I almost missed it. But I saw it, and my heart plummeted. "Tony," I whispered, voice breaking. His eyes opened, soft and sad, and he smiled faintly. "Jennifer, promise me you'll live. Even if I can't be there." I nodded, tears spilling freely now. I promise." He closed his eyes again. And that was it. I stayed there, holding his hand across the table, feeling it grow colder in mine, listening to the faint hum of the cafe, the soft clink of spoons, the distant laughter of strangers who had no idea what tragedy sat quietly in their midst. Time became meaningless. There was only that one moment, and the realization that love, even when it endures, cannot always save the people we want it to save. When I finally left the cafe hours later, the note of his smile lingered in my mind. A reminder of everything I had lost, everything I had loved, and everything I would carry with me forever. I never saw him again. I never held him. Never said the words I wanted to scream into his chest, never begged him to stay. But somewhere deep inside me I felt the faint echo of him, the part of him that loved me fully, completely, unconditionally, lingering like a ghost I would never forget. I walked away, the chill of the Boston air biting at my cheeks, my hands clutching the Polaroid I had brought from home, remembering a smile I had thought would last a lifetime. And in that memory, even in the quiet, the heartbreak, and the grief, I understood. Some love doesn't end. It just waits for a time when hearts are ready to let it go. I whispered his name once more into the empty city streets, into the wind that carried my tears. "Tony, I love you. Always." And even though he was gone, I felt him there. A year had passed since that day in the cafe. Time had a strange way of moving forward while leaving pieces of the past intact. Jagged fragments I carried quietly with me, hidden beneath a carefully composed life. I had returned to work at the hospital, finding solace in the rhythm of care and the faces of patients who needed someone to stay. Somehow, helping others kept the memories of Tony alive without suffocating me. I had moved to a small apartment closer to the ocean. The waves were calm most mornings, their constant ebb and flow reminding me that life, even when broken, still continued. It was during one of these morning walks that I found myself at the entrance of the local hospice. I hadn't intended to go in, but something pulled me through the doors, a quiet curiosity, or maybe the memory of Tony's quiet dedication to Claire. I was greeted by a kind woman behind the front desk. Her smile was gentle, and her eyes seemed to hold a lifetime of understanding. "Can I help you?" she asked. I'm just visiting," I said softly, feeling a strange pull in my chest. She nodded, and I wandered down the hallway, the soft murmur of voices and the faint smell of antiseptic wrapping around me. It was familiar, comforting in a way I didn't expect. And then I saw it, a small envelope on the reception counter with my name written in Tony's handwriting. I froze, my hands trembling as I reached for it. My heart knew somehow that this wasn't just a letter. Inside was a box, small and neat. I opened it slowly, as though every fold might shatter the fragile balance of my world. The first thing I saw was a Polaroid, the one from our first Cape Cod trip, the same photo from the cafe months ago. I held it gently, tracing the edges with my fingers. Beneath it was a stack of letters, each folded carefully. I unfolded the first one, my eyes scanning the familiar handwriting that had once made me ache with love. Jennifer, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I tried to leave these letters for you before, but I never knew if you were ready. Now you might be. Tears pricked my eyes as I continued reading, the words spilling over me like a tide. I know I hurt you. I know I left you with questions and pain that no apology can fix. But I need you to know that my love for you was always real. Even when I stayed with Claire, even when I couldn't be with you fully, my heart belonged to you. You saved me from despair, Jennifer. You gave me hope when I thought I had none left. And now I leave you the only thing I have left to give, my love, in every word, in every memory, in every heartbeat that you held in your hands. I sank into the nearest chair, clutching the letters as though they were a lifeline. I wanted to scream, to curse fate, to cry until the world ended. But instead I read. Every letter, every line, every confession of love and regret. With each word I felt him again, his voice, his warmth, the soft brush of his hand against mine. He was gone, truly gone, but his love remained, untouched by time or death. I didn't go back to the cafe where we had last met. I didn't need to. The letters, the memories, the Polaroid, they were enough. Enough to remind me of the man who had loved me completely, fiercely, and quietly, even when life had forced him to hold back. That night, I walked along the ocean, the letters tucked safely in my bag. The waves lapped against the shore, steady and reassuring. I closed my eyes and let the wind carry my tears, whispering his name. Tony? I could feel him in the quiet. Not in the tangible world, not in a form I could touch, but in the stillness of my heart, in the echo of memories that refused to fade. Somewhere, in another life, perhaps we would have had the time we were denied. Perhaps I would have held him again and he would have stayed. But this life, with all its limitations and heartbreak, had given me something equally profound, the knowledge that love endures even in absence. I walked back to my apartment, the salty air on my face, the letters heavy with the weight of a love that had saved me in ways I hadn't realized. Tony's love had broken me, yes, but it had also taught me how to survive, how to feel, how to hope again. Days turned into weeks. I continued volunteering at the hospice, guiding patients and families through pain and fear. In every story, in every gentle touch, I carried Tony with me. His love became a quiet strength, the reminder that even when life takes everything, it can also leave something beautiful behind. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, I opened the last letter. Jennifer, it began, if love means saving you from yourself, then I hope my love has done that. I hope you remember that you are capable of happiness, capable of giving and receiving love again. Live fully, Jennifer. Love deeply. And know always that you were the best part of my life. I folded the letter carefully and placed it beside the Polaroid on my nightstand. I sat for a long time, watching the last rays of sunlight fade into darkness, feeling the quiet swell of a love that had shaped my soul. I whispered into the empty room, into the night, into the wind. I love you, Tony. I always will. And your love, it saved me. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself smile. Not a fleeting smile, not one forced by courtesy or distraction. A real, deep smile, the kind that comes when grief has done its work and left the heart a little lighter, a little braver. I would carry him with me always. His secret had destroyed me. His love had saved me. And now, finally, I could live.